Today we're talking about nutrient cycling in tropical rainforests. And of course, is very important to understand that biogeochemical processes in tropical rainforests are extremely important to understand in order to um, capture the broad spectrum of the diversity of the forest. And of course, every single aspect from soils to the way the forest is composed or the forest is built, it's actually part of the dynamics of this nutrient cycle phenomena. It's known that tropical forests have poor soils. One of the aspects that contributes immensely to this particular phenomenon is heavy rains and heat. These two things combined um, produce relatively poor tropical soils, except some areas. Of course, Costa Rica is like an exception to the rule because of its volcanoes. And of course, the volcanic activity over time has increased the richness of the soil in some areas. But if you look on the ground, you will see all these foliage, all these leaves that fall from the top and very slowly begin to decompose, aided by all kinds of microbes, fungi, bacteria, and other components living in the forest floor that will transform these leaves into very rich nutrients. Today, we are going to go deep a little bit in the subject of understanding tropical rainforest nutrient cycling and soils. Well, primary productivity brings solar energy into ecosystems, some of which convert the potential energy incorporated into organic compounds. As energy passes through food webs, recall recall these or remember this: the energy or that energy is ultimately lost of heat and is never recycled. Decomposition and subsequent recycling is the process by which materials move between the living and the non-living components of the ecosystem. Recycling is a byproduct of decomposition, and decomposition is the means by which decomposer organisms acquire the energy and nutrients. In a rainforest, a unit of energy fixed during primary productivity is the amount of carbon fixed in excess of metabolic needs of the plant. This may consume as part of the living tissue, as when a caterpillar chews on a leaf, or it may remain within the leaf structure until the leaf eventually drops from the tree, at which time the energy becomes available to the soil community. This moves energy directly into what is termed the decomposer food web. The vast majority of energy fixed during photosynthesis is destined to directly enter the decomposer food web, which is what you're looking at right now on the ground. All these leaves went through the photosynthesis process, incorporated carbon to the plant, fed the plant, and then dropped on the ground to turn into a very fundamental nutrient source for the plant community in this rainforest. Think of the microbes, fungi, and bacteria, which are the principal organisms found on this forest floor. These microbes ultimately convert high energy organic tissue back to simple low energy inorganic compounds, making them available to be uptaken by root system of the plants. Many other organisms also contribute to the decomposition of these leaves you can see on the ground, like slime molds, other types of fungi, protozoa, and tiny animals such as termites, earthworms, and others that are found wandering on the forest floor. The tropical diversity found on this leaf litter on the ground that seems so inoffensive may rival the diversity one can find in the canopy of the rainforest. Fungi, let's talk about fungi for a second, and we might actually find some fungi on the ground. Fungi is one of the commonest organisms found in the tropics. An individual fungal strand is called hypha, and a network of hyphae is called mycelium. In some tropical forests, the net-like mycelium is sufficiently dense to be visible on the forest floor. Fungi, like bacteria, are essential decomposers. They ultimately liberate atoms back to the soil, and in addition, many fungal species, collectively called mycorrhiza, many of which we may see, many of which we may not, are essential to trees and other plants, aiding in the uptake of atoms from the soil. Organisms facilitate a process called humification, in which complex organic matter called humus is maintained between the tree roots and the soil. Interestingly, humus particles are negatively charged, and by electrostatic attraction, they act to retain mineral nutrients such as potassium, calcium, which carry positive charge in the soil. So negatively charged humus attracts positively charged nutrients, if you want to look at it from that perspective. Soils represent a temporary repository for essential mineral nutrients such as phosphorus, nitrogen, calcium, sodium, magnesium, and potassium. Each of these minerals, as well as others, are necessary for biochemical reactions of all organisms living in a rainforest. A shortage can significantly limit productivity. For example, nitrogen and phosphorus are both important in the structure of DNA. Magnesium is essential for the chlorophyll molecule. Without it, photosynthesis would never occur. Nutrient cycle, or cycling, is also termed biogeochemical cycling to describe the fundamental process of chemicals moving continuously between the living organisms and the non-living organisms of the ecosystem. Remember, the movement of minerals in an ecosystem is strongly influenced by temperature and rain. Heat stimulates evaporation, and as plants warm, they evaporate water, cooling the plants and returning a great deal of water to the atmosphere. This process, as we learned before, is called transpiration or evapotranspiration. This transpiration is an essential process in the making or in plant physiology, I would say. It brings water and minerals up from the soil and helps cool the plant and supply essential nutrients and water needed for plant metabolism. Water from rainfall is taken up by plants and transpired, returned to the atmosphere under the stress of tropical heat. In areas with heavy rains, the rain tends to create something called leaching. It tends to wash off nutrients from the top of the leaves. Many leaves in tropical rainforest have created designs in order to be able to avoid such a hard impact of the rain on the surface of the leaf, leaching out some of the nutrients uh, that the leaves may have, and of course make it more vulnerable to predator attack. One thing is this waxy coating. Notice how strong the tropical leaves could be, pretty much like bills, like money, right? They also may develop these drip tips, as you can see, which in heavy downpours may get rid of the excess of water. If we examine other leaves, you can also see the waxy coating of some of these leaves. This will, of course, maintain the plants in good shape and, of course, impeding the rain from actually making such devastating effect. When leaves finally fall on the ground, of course, they will be transformed into resourceful nutrients. Remember that calcium, magnesium, and potassium in the rainforest is not located usually in the soil, but is located mostly in living plant tissue.